Premier League Chief Executive Richard Masters says Everton owner Farhad Moshiri still wants to sell the club to 777 partners. The potential takeover has dragged on for 8 months, with 777 receiving conditional approval from the Premier League, but the prospective new owners are yet to meet the league's rules. Given the uncertainty, some Everton supporters have called on Moshiri to pull the plug on the deal.
The Premier League's role in this is, as regulator, is to perform the test. It's not to decide who the current owner wants to sell this club to. That is his decision. At the moment, he wants to continue to have discussions with 777 about it. The Premier League has made very clear the conditions that have to be met by 777 if it wishes to become the owner of Everton. And at the moment, obviously, because the takeover hasn't been confirmed, I'll leave it to the committee to make its own conclusions about where we are with that. Rick and Mark have talked about actually some of the benefits of the regulatory ownership test, in the sense they'll get access to more information that we can have, because we're not a statutory body, so we can only get the information we're provided with, and we have strong investigatory powers. So the other thing that Mark talked about was about speed, and I do accept that takeovers that carry on for a very long time are not good for fan certainty, and that's why we have a very big team of people that do nothing else than this. All I would say is that over time, particularly in the Premier League, takeovers are becoming increasingly complex. And this is not a small undertaking on behalf of the regulator to take this particular burden on. That's why we want to remain involved with it as well. It's very complicated. We need to make sure that all those decisions are correct, even if that means taking a little bit more time to make sure that decision is correct.
It seems that there is a real role for the regulator here, because the regulator could make this a lot simpler, which is to say that you demonstrate the proof of funds, you demonstrate where you're raising those funds from, and until you can do that, the answer is going to be no.
I'd imagine that's possibly correct, Damien, in that circumstance. But obviously, I can't imagine what the situation would be like if we had a regulator in this current example that you're raising. And obviously, I know a little bit more about it in terms of the background to it all. I can't say too much about it, but I do think there are some benefits to the regulator working in tandem with leagues on this particular topic.
So Masters was talking to MPs today about the new football regulator and its potential effects on the industry. Watching in Westminster was our senior reporter Geraint Hughes, who joins us live now. And Geraint, first of all, just explain a little bit more about what exactly is happening today and who's been speaking.
Yeah, Richard Masters, it's not exactly unfamiliar to see him and Rick Parry, the chair of the EFL, to be in front of MPs. But just make it clear, this is not a normal committee. This is not a select committee that have asked them to come in to explain why they haven't come to a new financial deal or something like that to do with the new football governance bill. This is a scrutiny committee because the football governance bill has had 2 readings in this place behind me in Parliament already. So this committee has been set up to look at the bill, see how they can, if they can, make it better, put amendments throughout it, listen to a number of people and try and sort of fine-tune that bill so when it becomes law, and it will become law, it is fit for purpose in the eyes of everyone involved, all the stakeholders, as much as those being the Premier League, the EFL, the National League, who we've heard from so far this morning as well. So that is what we're here in Westminster today. And you heard that question from an MP, Damien Collins, there, about the Everton situation, about the Everton takeover. Not necessarily pertinent to what they were talking about today. However, didn't it prick ears when Richard Masters was talking about the latest on that?
And Geraint, you already mentioned there Rick Parry sitting next to Masters from the EFL. The pair have disagreed on the issue of solidarity payments. How did they get on today with that?
Now, this is something that does regularly happen when Rick Parry and Richard Masters come before MPs. They've done it before, albeit, as I was trying to explain, this is a different committee. It is a cast of thousands, actually, with some big hitters, the likes of the Sports Minister, Stuart Andrew, Tracy Crouch, who was a former Sports Minister and the author of the fan-led review, and Damien Collins, who's a former chair of a select committee. But this back and forth between Richard Masters and Rick Parry happened once again. And it all revolves around the powers of the football regulator, the regulator. How powerful will they be for that regulator? How interventionist will they be around issues such as an owners and directors test and finances, a new financial deal? Let's listen to what both said when they were asked questions about the powers of the backstop, the powers of the regulators to intervene on such issues.
What we would like this committee to look at are the unintended consequences of regulatory interventions that aren't necessary. So proportionate regulatory interventions dealing with the issues that are arising. So to use a sort of motoring metaphor, we agree that if you're speeding, that there should be regulatory tools to intervene. But we wouldn't want to see the speed limit reduced from 70 miles an hour to 50 miles an hour to keep everybody safe. We think that would be a step too far.
We view it positively. Everything we've found so far in terms of engagement with DCMS and in terms of the shadow body that is the regulator is that all of these concerns can be addressed. It's going to be a tougher environment, but football needs a tougher environment. We've had 30 years to get this right and we failed.
What we're seeing here in the bill is prudential regulation, which is born out of the financial services industry. And obviously aren't many parallels between banking and football. Obviously we're worried that prudential regulation could be too interventionist and could tie up investment or deter investment to the detriment of the whole football pyramid.
There's been a lot of talk about investment, and investment's a curious word in football. Investment to me tends to mean sensible investment in assets that generate returns. In football it tends to mean excessive spending and then owners then moving on. What we're trying to do in making clubs sustainable is to reduce the dependence on owner funding, because we've heard previously owner funding is fabulous until it isn't.
So the thoughts there from Rick Parry from the EFL and Richard Masters from the Premier League to this scrutiny committee that is looking at this football governance bill and ways to amend it and make it better when it eventually becomes law. And it could be, I beg your pardon, later this year, irrespective of which government is in power. It's got cross-party agreement, this football governance bill. Just to give you a sense as well is how hard this committee is working today. So far today we've heard from academics, Richard Masterson and Rick Parry, and Mark Ives from the National League as well. We've heard from a supporters group as well. This afternoon we've got several club owners in front of the committee, the likes of Tony Bloom from Brighton and Steve Parish from Crystal Palace, along as other club owners from within the EFL as well. It's going to be a long old day, but this is about getting this bill right, fit for purpose for the supporters, the clubs, the owners, and of course the likes of those stakeholders, the Premier League, the EFL and the National League as well.